When I used to hear about people with 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved, I think, they must have a high income to pull that off. And maybe you're thinking the same thing, right? That an emergency fund is only possible if you are earning big. But here is what we learned that changed everything. Building an emergency fund isn't about having a high income. It's about making the most of what you already have. That shift in thinking help us to go from having nothing saved, zero saved, to having now 3 months of living expenses and then working towards achieving 6 months.
And that is all based on one income for now.
So yes, you can start saving even if your income feels tight. You don't need a huge paycheck, just a few smart moves. And in this video, we will show you exactly how. You are welcome to Cash Talk for Immigrants. My name is Christine, and my beloved is
Wachuku, Vidal Wachuku. Now, the first thing you need to understand why having an emergency fund is super crucial and important for you as an immigrant, okay? You know that we're in a new country. As an immigrant, of course, you're in a new country with new challenges. Most of us here don't have any family support system. I know of people that are here that are the only ones, all here by themselves. No brother, no sister, nobody else. It's not like back home that we have this family support system that if you have any challenges and trials, there will always be people there because we're a communal society.
yes.
But here, it's to thy tent, O Israel. Everybody is on their own. And then another reason why many people don't have money, this emergency fund, is because we send money back home to support family back home because they're all looking up to us,
Yes.
or to execute other projects that will be beneficial to our communities. Okay? So when unexpected expenses crop up, we tend to be caught flat-footed and we are not able to rise up to the challenge. What does this do? It puts a huge strain on our budget.
Yes, because an emergency fund is money that you actually put aside that gives you the power to handle these situations without disrupting your life or making you go into debt. Think about these unexpected expenses that pop up, like expensive car repairs or medical bills. Maybe you went for your annual checkup and you had a health scare and something was just said that you just need a lot of money to take care of, or even home repairs. If you own your home and then something major happened that you need to fix it, or even a last minute trip back home as immigrants, something may pop up and you just need to go home. You didn't plan for it. So without a backup fund, these surprises can throw you off course very fast and right into huge debts, and these debts come with accompanying high interest rates. An emergency fund is like your financial shock absorber. It helps you to handle this moment without going into debt or relying on high interest loans.
Now, when you put this into proper perspective, what does it do? It keeps you motivated because you become determined to overcome anything that will stop you from building this fund. You need to build it. And when we develop this mindset ourselves, even though we were a one-income family even at the time, we realized that you don't really need so much money to start. Okay? So if you're determined to start with just, even if it's to be able to put enough aside to cover 1 month of living expenses, that is better than having nothing at all. And of course, it differs from person to person. There are people that might be able to even put aside 2-3 months at once. 1 month might not sound like much, but I tell you, it's a solid cushion for any minor emergency that may come up. And of course, depending on your income, you can start with as low as $20 every paycheck, so that you do not feel overwhelmed or feel the pain of bringing out that money.
Yes, we started small and then gradually increased the amount, which is why we're saying start with having 1 month of living expenses so that you don't feel overwhelmed, right? The important thing is to form the habit and stay consistent with whatever amount you decide to contribute from your paycheck. Once you hit that first goal of having this 1 month of living expenses, then aim at taking care of your high interest debts. You cannot,
if you have any,
right? Because for us, we do not have any of those debts. So because you cannot save if you have debt and interest eating up your money. So you have to free yourself, first of all. So once you clear this, then you focus on saving 3 months worth of living expenses. That doesn't mean you're going to just stop at 3 months, but hitting 3 months allow you now to turn your focus onto tax-free accounts such as your Roth IRA, Roth 401k, cash accumulation, life insurance. So like for us, we just finished making payment for our car and this year. So we decided that that amount we were paying, we're still going to use that same amount to put into our Roth IRA.
The next step is to increase your savings. Work towards increasing your savings. Once you've been able to put aside this money now into the Roth IRA to building cash for you, the next thing you want to do is to increase your savings to at least 6 months of living expenses that you can put aside. What that does for you is that it prepares you for any significant or major event that may happen. Remember, life happens, okay? Now, this reminds me, of something that I found out when we were in Florida. We had just been in the US for, I think, just under a year at the time. And I was interacting with my church members, a club in the church. And I asked the men there, I said, hey, you guys, if you lose your job today, how many of you have enough to be able to survive on for the next 3 months? They burst into laughter. And I was taken a little bit aback because I thought I had said something wrong or underestimated them, only for somebody to now stand up and say, Mr. Wachiku, you give us too much credit. The truth is that if we lose our jobs today, most of us here, if we lose our jobs today, we don't even have up to 2 weeks living expenses. We will be in trouble. I was shocked. It surprised me. In fact, it was from then, after discussing it with my wife, that we said, even though we were a one-income family, we said, we are going to try to put something aside. How can somebody live like that? So the point is this: if you lose your job today, what happens? You want to think about that. And to be able to do that, you have to decide what you can keep aside going forward. What makes you comfortable? What gives you the ability to sleep at night stress-free? Is it to have a 6 months backup plan? I started with talking about 6 months, but is it 6 months? Is it 8 months? Is it 1 year? Is it 12 years? You know your lifestyle and you know your own needs.
And also the number of people you're catering for.
Or the family that you have.
Yes.
So what might work for one person might not work for the other.
Exactly.
But you want to look at least a minimum of 6 months at this point in time, so that your emergency fund will be there when you need it.
Yes, because it's actually a journey building an emergency fund. Right? So we said that you're building this emergency fund to take care of needs that come up unexpectedly. So you have to determine what constitutes a genuine emergency. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to build the fund, because you will start building it, and then whenever anything comes up, because you've not predetermined if it's an emergency or not, you dip your hand into it. Before you know it, there's no emergency fund anymore. So looking at it, buy a 100-inch flat screen TV because it's on sale for 1/3 the regular price on Black Friday is definitely not an emergency.
Definitely, definitely. Now, when you talk about emergency, think of something big, something major.
Yes.
Okay. For instance, car repairs, they can be expensive, or home repairs if you own a home. What about health challenges for yourself or your loved ones, or even folks back home that depend on you? Okay. Deaths. People die at home and they are calling you to send money to help out. What about that job loss that we talked about earlier on? Do you have enough to tide you over until you get a new job? What about if the need arises for you to travel home in a jiffy, in an emergency situation? Would you be able to find the money without going into debt? So those are the type of things that should be going on in your mind to help you to determine what constitutes real emergencies.
Yes, so let's take a closer look at your spending habits. You know, there are often areas where you can cut back because your spending habits have an effect on the amount you're able to save for these emergencies. So you can look at areas, where you can cut back a little bit. And some of the biggest budget eaters for most people are things like high maintenance cars. If you have a car that, costs a lot.
If you're like a Texan and you have your truck that guzzles gas like water.
Exactly. Or medical bills, or hefty mortgage payments that you have to make. So you start from there. Is there a way to reduce these larger costs? Could you switch to a car with lower upkeep costs or refinance to lower your mortgage? Then there are the smaller everyday expenses. Those add up too.
Maybe it's just a subscription that you don't really need or use anymore. We had a Netflix subscription, but when life happened, we cut it off. We started checking YouTube subscription. We cut it off. To save that extra money, or that streaming service that you have that you forgot to cancel. You need to do so. Gym memberships is another thing that guzzles a lot of money because they can be expensive.
So expensive, exactly. And you can do at home. I do my exercises at home.
And I walk as my own exercise. Now, what about those daily money guzzling habits? Ordering to goes at home, eating out, and doing all those. They chip away at your budget. Black Friday is another example where people spend money that they don't really need to spend just because it is cheap.
Yep. And to impress their neighbors who don't even care whether they exist or don't even know they exist. So let's break it down. Let's say now you love that Starbucks pumpkin spice latte, which costs about $6.95 plus tax, right? And you're buying one every weekday. That's over $139 a month.
Just on drinking Starbucks.
Exactly. So try calculating what you spend on your own favorite indulgence, right? We are not saying you should cut out all treats for yourself. But if you don't yet have an emergency fund, then these expenses shouldn't be a daily habit. Shifting just a few of these costs towards savings can make a huge difference for you.
This is where delayed gratification comes in very handy. So just setting aside about $20 a week can really add up over time. And you'll truly be amazed at how quickly such money grows. $20 a week means about $80 a month, and that translates to about $960 a year. That's a lot. When you redirect these small amounts consistently, they can turn into extras and turn into a huge safety net for you. In this equation, every dime counts. Every bit counts. And when you truly understand the necessity and the need and the importance of this emergency fund, making these changes will come to you so easily because you see how needful it is to have it.
Yes, and then the sense of fulfillment you get when you see your money growing will spur you to stick to it, right? However, there are some things that may discourage you. So let's say now you decide that, okay, you want to start this emergency fund, and then every month you have to remember to do that. You have to switch on your computer, log in, go to your web browser, go to your bank and transfer the money and all that. Of course, it's not every time you will remember. And all these steps you have to take are like roadblocks that stand in your way. Like, right, you may feel lazy, you may not remember, and it doesn't get done. The more hurdles you have, the less consistent you will be in making that contribution to your emergency fund. So to keep it simple, set up an automatic transfer for the amount you have chosen per paycheck, right? You will hardly notice it missing because you've just set it up and you forget all about it. So those small automatic transfers build up into a solid safety net that allows you to sleep well at night.
Now, talking about those automatic transfer reminds me about something that, I wasn't really consciously thinking of doing it at the time, but it was something that just came to me because when we first came here, we were in the habit of changing our cars almost every year. And of course, we would go through a bank or a credit union. So I remember some of those credit unions, about 3 of them that we used to finance our cars or to pay for our cars, and we had to open accounts with them. I remember that what I did was, even when we were no longer using them for those purposes, we left those accounts. I left those accounts on. And all I did was just what she was saying, set up automatic transfers to those accounts, little amounts of money. I remember one of them was like $50 every month will go into that account just to keep it going. There was one that I had only $10 going into that account. And then there's another one also about $100. So I just spread it out like that. And recently I was, one of those accounts, I just remember that I could no longer access it online. I hadn't been to it for a long time, but I knew that money was still going into that account. So I was like, okay, let me find out how much it's even in this account. So I had to call them because I couldn't access it anymore. I had to call them and they granted me access and I went in. And lo and behold, this was an account that I was putting in, I think $50 a month or so. So over these, how many years?
2 years or 3.
Or so, I now saw that there was $1,500 plus. Actually, it was more like $1,600 in that account. And I didn't know I had that money there, So this is what we talk about when we say
that's the power of automatic transfer.
Little amounts, that do not have a dent on you. So you do not even feel it.
Because you've set it up and forget about it.
It's not a huge amount. And so you don't even know that it's going out. You don't feel it as much. And then one day you go check it out. Look at that. I saw over 1,600 actually in that account. So this is something that we want you to take into deep consideration. That automatic payment thing, you wouldn't feel it much. Set it up, forget it. You don't have to do anything manually because it's when you have to start doing it manually, it becomes burdensome. You don't remember. But once you set it to automatic, that's how we actually do even for our credit card payments. Exactly. That's why we don't owe on our credit cards. We set everything, pay the full statement balance automatically at the end of every statement period. That's what you need to do. Then the other thing that you could also do to raise more money in this area is, looking for a side gig, something you could do to earn a little bit extra. It could be on weekends. It could be that extra hour at your job place. Remember, your goal at this point, if you don't have an emergency fund particularly, is to build up one as fast as you can.
Yes,
and as soon as possible.
Yeah, we talked about using the skills you came from Africa with, right? Like you can also use that, can come in handy. You may have your regular job, but use that skill, at weekends or other times when you have the opportunity, and that extra money it brings in, you can make up your mind that it's specifically for your emergency fund.
So ultimately, the key is this. The key is this. Put in all that extra income, particularly if you could live on whatever your regular income was.
Mm-hmm.
So any of this that comes in, you want to put it straight into your emergency fund. You are building up your financial safety net. Remember, you don't have no father, no brother. In America, you are on your own. So you have to look out for yourself.
Once you start building your emergency fund, it's important for you to keep it where it's safe and easily accessible, like a high yield savings account. High yield savings accounts offer better interest rates, even 10 times more than your regular brick and mortar savings account. And your money
more than your 0.1% savings account.
Exactly. So your money grows a bit on its own. It's small, but it's a steady way to make sure that your emergency fund is not just sitting there and inflation eating in, and then you're losing money with just having it there. So put it into a high yield savings account so that it can keep working for you. But remember, though you have it there, make sure that you have some little cash at hand. It may come in handy.
And when we talk about having cash at hand, it's not just in your wallet. You have some cash in your wallet at hand, but you also want to have some cash at home. Nothing too much, but sizable enough to meet 1,000. Exactly, to meet some expenses in case that need arises. And here's the thing, here's the deal, folks. Building an emergency fund isn't, again, let's reemphasize this, about how much you make. It's all about consistency, determination, consistency. You are thinking of your future and you are thinking of that first. And even if it's just a few dollars at a time, do it. Commit to it. Be consistent. Then give it an extra push. Let it go to work for you and increase a little bit more by keeping it in a high yield interest savings account, not in your brick and mortar 0.1% dollar account. Now, over the months, you'll be amazed at how much it grows. And if you're a Christian, you want to treat it the way you treat tithes. I know that most Christians do not joke with their tithes. So let this amount that you put aside be like a tithe that you pay yourself. And just as you faithfully pay your tithe, and you don't want to be seen as stealing from God, pay this money to yourself by putting it into that emergency fund and treat it as holy, not a fund you can go to anytime, anyhow. Tell yourself you don't have an option. You have to build this safety net.
Yes, the Bible says that the wise man saves for the future, but the foolish spends whatever he gets. He eats up everything. So if you are ready to start, tell us in the comments, what's one small change you will make today to kickstart your emergency fund? And if you already have such a fund, what keeps you consistent? And or what prevents you from being consistent? Let's hear.
Okay, now if you found this video helpful, come on, show us some love. Don't forget to like it and subscribe. Subscribe so that you will have more tips. You will be the first to know. Hit that notification bell so that you'll be the first to know when a new video is posted. These tips help you to take control of your finances. Remember, it's all about taking that all-important first step, no matter your income. Don't give any excuse. Start small. Even if it's $10, $20, start small. Stay consistent and build your fund. You've got this.